ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner el pie. Lo ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner el pie.
Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
And I'm Paul Ogden.
We're talking about world peace. We've been talking about gun violence the first segment.
We should thank our host today.
Yes, our host is Melissa Donaghy. We're at Melissa's house on North Central Avenue.
Beautiful
Indianapolis,
house.
Indiana. Gorgeous
With
house.
a wonderful wreath behind us.
Peace wreath.
wreath behind us.
Also guests on our panel are Dave Scott. Dave, welcome. And Bill Levin, the infamous, the immortal. We were talking about, at the end of the segment, David brought up the whole point of video games and the way that video games have gotten more violent. There's something about our culture, our American culture, that's more violent than other cultures somehow because...
No.
Well, wait a minute. Switzerland requires that every household have a firearm.
Yes.
Okay, they haven't been invaded for 400 years or 500 years.
You cannot say we're more violent.
Okay, wait a minute. Look at our favorite sport in this country is football, where people give each other a concussion on every play. On TV, you watch.
But they freely consent to do it, Mark.
I know that, but it's a violent thing.
But it's not anti-peace. They're at peace when they're on that football field.
It's a peaceful concussion.
It's
Well, I think it's the point that we celebrate that kind of conflict, and then we step back and try to regulate how hard the hit should be, even though we're celebrating. It's like Rome. If you've got the gladiators, then they're going to do what they do, but don't try to backpedal away from it because you built the arenas, you put them in there, and it is what it is, and it's a reflection of our appetites.
Oh, it is.
But other cultures don't have the same appetites that we have. And so other cultures, in looking at the Swiss and firearms, don't have the number of, because in Switzerland, there's an automatic weapon in every household, and presumably somebody could go out and start spraying bullets in one of the Swiss parks.
But they don't do that there, do they?
No, they don't.
Because they had proper training in high school before they got their government-issued pistol.
Not a pistol, it's an assault rifle.
I think they get both.
Get their gun.
Johann got his gun. Yeah, but what difference does that make in terms of technical training and safety? I think that those are important aspects, and actually were supposed to be like founding principles of the NRA. When you're looking at people who really couldn't they couldn't care less about gun safety if they're grabbing an automatic weapon to go in and mow down people in a mall, a school, or a
It's not an
parking lot.
automatic weapon.
Semi-automatic, but those can be switched to automatic
We-
release.
What we're looking at is people with mental issues. It's a mental issue thing. In China or in Japan, they all get out a samurai sword and they whack up a bunch of people.
Well, wait a minute, no, they can't do that many people as
Actually,
easily.
they do that in a school in China.
They can't do that many people as easily as they can with a gun.
It was like 20-something people.
That's right. They'll use gas.
Okay, well, they
They
did
did
that
a
on the
subway.
subway.
Yeah.
Okay, but those instances are fewer and less frequent than gun violence is here, because with a gun, anybody can pull the trigger and just kind of spray bullets.
When their emotions, something clicks in them and their emotions take over and they're not able to control their emotions because of the drugs they're on.
But do we, in terms of psychiatric issues, do we start watching people and screening certain behaviors, and if people exhibit certain behaviors, we isolate them and put them someplace?
Well, I think it's about education. I think one thing is that nutrition treats a lot of these problems that are making people crazy. Good, pure, organic, raw nutrition fixes a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Start there. Start there. Have, in schools, I mean, if you want to promote peace, promote nutrition first. Get those brains well fed, get those bodies well fed. They're out of balance. That's why we have this. So when you have proper nutrition, things get balanced. It's not like being high, it's just feeling good and being balanced. Let's start there.
You know, I agree with you on the nutrition. I think that the problem is we've conditioned ourselves and the youth to eat improperly.
Yeah.
So if kids feel
You're McKidding.
that's it. If kids feel they're entitled to the junk, so while you're converting them to the good stuff, there's an element in there where it can become such a conflict for them getting what they think they want, even though they haven't been educated to know
Well,
what's good.
actually not, because it happens pretty quickly, because you guys know I do juice feasting. It happens really, really quickly when you get off the junk, how
Jewish.
much better you feel on the raw stuff. It's not like, oh, a parent's gonna have to work with a child for 6 months. You just start them on it and they feel better. And if it's part of our education, I mean, we're not teaching our children that that most of their food choices are literally toxic and poison, and they are going to cause you to get sick and die.
But there's an element, and this goes back to something that's kind of like a good old boy American element. Like, I'm gonna have my big pickup truck and drive it, by God. Sarah Palin saying when Michelle Obama was advocating good nutrition in the schools, Sarah Palin came out with the sugar cookies to hand out to kids. In other words, saying, no, this is an American thing, having junk food. And it's that...
Did she do that as a response to Michelle Obama?
I believe that she did.
A direct response, like a direct...
It was a contemporaneous thing. But her coming out and pushing junk food was kind of like Sarah Palin advocating those types of foods
And
for
you
kids.
can have junk food. You can eat a big steak. But the majority of a person's diet needs to be raw, organic nutrition.
Yeah,
Because that nutrition is fixing everything that's going wrong with you that the other things are hurting. And do that and get it in the schools. And that is a great thing that Michelle Obama is doing. And doing the garden. Although I've heard that, the garden was a failure, but I don't know. But
Well,
anyway.
The thing is, all these places, these shootings take place, and one thing is consistent with it. They're all gun-free zones where people walk in and they know they're not going to get shot.
And another thing in common they all have is mental illness with it. Gun-free zone and mental illness, both of those things.
But in terms of the gun-free zone, just to address that, I believe Archie Bunker addressed that in All in the Family. In an equal time editorial, he said, well, I've got to wait, stop your hijackings. You get on the airplane, stewardess hands you a gun, everybody on the plane gets a gun, that way a hijacker gets up, tries to take the plane, but shoots a hijacker.
It probably
You get
would
off
work.
the plane, you give over your gun. Paul, there are certain places where, like,
And as I pointed out on my blog this morning, you're talking about on a plane, they search before you get on.
Mhm.
In a school, they don't search before you go in there.
Some schools they do.
It's some they do. Usually it's voluntary compliance.
Yeah, but we're
And
at
people who are crazy and criminal don't voluntarily comply with gun laws.
Exactly.
But they don't have access to the guns to begin with,
Oh,
which is
they
my
do.
argument. If you restrict the number of guns, let's go to some of the elements. Not saying ban guns completely, but how about this? Take away the extended clips. Why do you need extended clips in this society? For what? That's just spray a whole
All
lot
right,
of bullets.
wait a minute,
Military
wait a minute,
application.
wait a minute. I don't want him to have a wide brush because he painted a nude picture, so I only want him to have thin brushes.
But this is an expression, Bill.
Nut.
This has to do with being able to
Have you
fire.
ever gone out and just joyously gone shooting, in a range or someplace?
Not a range in the forest.
In a forest where, in designated shooting area? There's nothing more fun than running off a good 30 clip.
Well, wait a minute. Let's use cost-benefit analysis and look at the cost to society by having a few momentary thrills of 50 clip things or 15 round clips against that. The cost is people dying in mass shootings. And if there were some restriction where you can go into a range and just use a clip in that range, rent it, shoot the gun and leave, that's fine. But until then, by having those extended clips, that really enables these people to shoot a whole lot of people at once.
Okay, so then what happens is they get a couple short clips, they tape them together and turn them over.
It makes it more difficult for them. You put impediments in the way.
Well, and I think we were talking about the,
Gun manufacturers want more bullets going through their guns, hence they make larger clips. They don't make smaller clips.
well, I think the whole video game issue goes back to young people, kids being trained in how to do the most damage in a short period of time. And these shootings, these people are dressed for military battle.
Yeah.
They're going in
That's
like there's
true.
an opposition, even if their opposition is unarmed. Their mindset is
They've been
I'm
trained.
They've been trained.
Yeah.
I'm going in there and I'm going to mow down as many people as possible to make my statement. So why should military grade weaponry be in the neighborhoods, be in our society? It's like, why do we need this stuff? Are we going to be overtaken? Are we going to be overthrown as a nation?
Well, the only argument for that I could see is somebody saying we need such weapons so that we can try and overcome tyranny should our government become too much of a tyranny. That happened with Shays' Rebellion. That was why they wrote the Constitution. They actually had arms sufficient where they could kind of challenge the government. The federal government came into being for a reason. It was to be sure that there was law and order. And today, you would need not one Abrams mainline battle tank. You'd need 100 of them to challenge the United States government. So there's no reason to have combat-grade
But
weapons.
Your liberals, like you, want to go further. They want to take away private possession of any gun.
I didn't, okay.
And I thought that's what your blog said. Granted, maybe I didn't read it all the way through.
I said,
That was very good. That was Bonzo.
okay.
Yeah.
No, here's what we do. I said, ban private ownership of firearms. In the meantime, and I pointed out, that's never going to happen.
But that's what you said you wanted.
Because I didn't say that in the
You shouldn't
column.
say that's your ultimate goal.
What we have in this country is both parties have been bought off by the NRA and gun manufacturers.
And that's a myth. The NRA doesn't have a lot of money.
62% of the American people want assault weapons banned. 62%. Congress would
According
never.
to,
According to whose
CBS
poll?
Washington Post polling.
All right.
Any of the pollings across the board show the same things. Assault weapons are not supported. But you could never get a bill considered like that in Congress today. But at the same time, you've got a Supreme Court where Justice Scalia, for example, says Second Amendment embraces the right to own a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. I mean, that's kind of beyond, I think, what the framers of the Constitution thought people needed in terms of a right to keep and bear
well,
arms.
do you think that the framers of the Constitution would feel like that even the most highly sophisticated, evolved guns of that era that people shouldn't be allowed to have? Maybe they should just have bow and arrows
No.
to defend themselves.
The most advanced weapons of the time were...
A Gatling gun.
No, that wasn't...
Barrel load.
It was
Muskets.
muzzle-loaded muskets that weren't very accurate, and...
Shot a knuckleball.
Yeah, it shot...
Knuckleball because the ball wasn't spinning.
Yeah, so this is the end of our second segment. We'll be back in just a minute.